I had a purpose before everybody had an opinion.
The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out.
You want Philly?
Chase Utley, you are the man.
You come out backyard and you try to start something, you always get your butt kicked.
The prayers have been answered.
How about those Eagles, baby?
And Rio Muto can run for days.
Can you feel what's about to happen on this field, man?
A perfect game. Roy Halladay has thrown the second perfect game in Philadelphia Phillies history.
Let's get right into it. Another week of Philly talk. A lot happened, especially in the week span, especially concerning the Phillies. But starting off with our NFL recap, we saw the Jets blow out the Pats on Thursday Night Football, I believe. Aaron Rodgers looking a lot like his old self, really helping that Jets offense, really showing how much he was missed last season because of that injury. New York and Cleveland surprisingly had a good game. That was pretty crazy to see, especially the Giants' offense looked that good. Cleveland, as I said, quarterback is going to be their main issue. The Vikings with Sam Darnold looking great through 3 weeks. They blow out the Texans, looking very good, very promising, Sam Darnold really looking revitalized. But of course, just 3 weeks in, 17-game season, got to see him keep it up, But 3 games in, hey, like I've always said with football, every loss matters, because of how short their season is. And so even a loss here, we're seeing people saying that some teams' seasons might be over already just because of the start they've had, That's how much every win matters in the NFL. Will Levis and the Titans are a meme at this point. Just every week there's some new picture of Will Levis that is meme-worthy. This week, there was like 3 alone that could have been it. It was crazy. My friend, he's a Broncos fan. I think I talked about him last season. He called the Broncos beating the Bucs. I was skeptical when he said, I was like, I don't know, man. This is a pretty tough Bucs team. But not only did they beat them, they kind of blew them out. That was pretty crazy to see. Las Vegas gave Carolina their first win. And, of course, I was starting their defense in fantasy because I was like, oh, it's the Panthers. You can start pretty much anyone against the Panthers and their defense will do well. Nope, not this week. I'm 0-3 in fantasy. I'm doing terrible. But, yeah, they gave Carolina their first win. Andy Dalton, the veteran, stepped in. Baltimore, back on track. Dallas can't stop the run. One of the funniest bits I saw was a Cowboys fan. Oh, gosh, I forget the name of his channel. He does stuff here on YouTube and TikTok. As he put it, the Dallas defense couldn't even stop a sentence with a period. They were abysmal against the run. Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson just went off against them. It was crazy to see. Hoping that, not really hoping, but, was pretty good to see. And you're hoping that, if you're a fan of the Ravens, that this is the start of, an upward trajectory, Derrick Henry, 151 yards, 2 touchdowns, 25 carries, hoping it's an upward trajectory that from their 0-2 start and that they can get back on track. The Rams pulled off the upset against the Niners. That was pretty crazy to see. Really back and forth, came down to the wire. Monday night saw Buffalo blow out Jacksonville. And then Cincinnati starting 0-3. That's one team that I've been seeing people say their season might be over. 0-3 start for Cincinnati is pretty crazy. Joe Burrow is not looking that good. And I think, isn't the whole Jamar Chase stuff still going on with him and his contract? I can't remember. No, did he get a contract? I don't remember. But, a lot of stuff surrounding that Bengals team not looking too good. 324, 3 touchdowns is pretty good for Joe Burrow, especially from his previous 2 starts, But still isn't enough to get them that win. Pretty tough to see. Especially, they played pretty well that game. They had a decent rushing attack too. Just not looking good for them. But moving forward to our Philly-oriented stuff. Gotta apologize to Dallas Goedert. Any other week, had he gone off, he would have been the thumbnail. But you see the thumbnail. It's the most important part of what happened this week with Philly that we got to talk about. But so, first off, before we even get to the point of the thumbnail, I just got to say, I am so disappointed in the Phillies for the previous stretch before Monday. They lost to the Brewers. They got one win to clinch them the playoffs. And then they head to the Mets. They just needed 2 wins to clinch the division. They only get 1 and they lose the series. But I believe they won the season series, if I remember correctly. I don't remember what it is I saw, but they won. I think they won the thing, which is what gave them the tie. I think I don't remember. The whole magic number stuff was getting super complicated heading into this series, and people were posting all sorts of different graphics and scenarios, and it was just so confusing. I was like, I am just struggling to keep up, but they end up losing that series to the Mets. Not the best outing, from a lot of guys. I mean, Taijuan Walker was terrible in his start. We already knew that was going to happen. Christopher Sanchez starts, they put up 12. The next night, they only put up 3. And then when Wheeler comes out and, he wasn't, pitching great, but he was pitching, good. And they only give him 1 run of support, which is pretty tragic to see, And it's like they could have clinched at any point and they chose not to, So it was just very frustrating to watch, Like, they just weren't doing well for whatever reason. Like, I don't know what else to say other than the fact of, like, they just weren't doing well. I didn't understand, a lot of the swings they were taking, a lot of the way they were playing. It was very frustrating to watch. But so they head back home to Chicago, and everyone's like, oh, yeah, this is how they planned it, Like, obviously, we're not saying that, they intentionally lost the Mets series, but it was like, it just made sense story-wise, that they would return home and clinch it in front of the home crowd. That's what everyone was saying was, oh, when you think about it, if you're going to clinch the NL East for the first time in 13 years, why not do it in front of your home crowd? Sure, but it's like, I wish they would have had this thing locked up, a while ago. They should have won more games against Milwaukee. They should have won more games against the Mets. Very frustrating to watch, But, and of course, the whole storybook wise thing, who is pitching in the potential, division clinching game? Oh, it's just Aaron Nola, of course. He pitches a gem. The offense comes through to help them clinch that division, and they clinch it at home. And now they're trying to get that first round bye for the first time since 2011. The Philadelphia Phillies are the NL East champions. I was 9 years old when they last clinched that division. I know it's pretty revealing of my age, but I just have to get that out there. I was 9 years old when they last won that division, and now here we are 13 years later, and they've won it again. We've gone through that whole playoff drought. We've gone through the drought of not winning the East, and not being super competitive at times, even though, in the past couple of years, they've kind of been there. But yeah, it's pretty frustrating. It was a pretty frustrating time, but it's well worth it now, to see them win this division. Obviously, here come all the rivals trying to knock it, like the Braves fans trying to be like, oh, our injuries. What did you want the Phillies to do? Did you want them to lose the series, or not the series, but like what? Did you want them to just lay down, like, oh, I'm sorry, poor Braves, you have all these injuries. Go ahead and win the division still, It's like, what do you expect? I'm not going to knock them for taking advantage of the situation, They went out there, they were playing their best ball. Who knows what the Braves would have been like if they were fully healthy, But we went out there, we won, Can't be anything but happy with what this team has done this season, even though there have been frustrating times, especially since the All-Star break and since the trade deadline, But just happy to see them, and of course their job's not finished. They got to get that first round bye from Milwaukee. The Dodgers lost yesterday. They're a game and a half behind first place. I would really want them to get first place, because this team obviously needs, that advantage of being at home throughout the playoffs. Because, I mean, if they're not, they're like a whole different team, It's like you look at home, they're 53-27. On the road, 40-38. Only 2 games above 500. Massive difference, you know. At home, they've scored a lot more runs than away, and of course they've allowed a lot more runs on the road. So it just seems like, you know, they're best at home, and you know, it really worries you about certain things like I really wonder what this rotation is going to look like, because I don't know, it just seems like as of late certain guys aren't pitching well on the road for whatever reason. Like they're struggling on the road, they're struggling being in those opposing teams' environments, you know. So it's interesting, it's going to be interesting to see what they do for that, you know. But overall, you know, I'm happy to see them continuing. But of course, yesterday's game, they decided to basically punt, you know. They throw that game, they throw in Tanner Banks to start off, and then throw in Taijuan Walker with the bases loaded. Like, sure, the guy's confidence is already completely down bad. Let's just throw him in a bases loaded, I think only 1 out situation, or maybe there was only 0 outs. I don't remember. I think it was 1 out though, and it's like, yeah, this will surely help his confidence as he gives up a ton of runs, raises his ERA, and, you know, makes him the face of, you know, a ridicule basically for this entire team on why they have so many losses when it comes to that 5th starting game. And, you know, I feel bad for the guy, because it's like, you can tell he's trying everything he can to do good, and he feels terrible about his play, and yet just nothing, you know. Like, at this point, it's on the team for continuing to play him. Like, he just doesn't have it, you know. He doesn't have anything, and, you know, I doubt he has any minor league options, which is why he can't be sent down, because it's like, if he did have options, maybe they would have sent him down at this point to try and work on stuff. But being, you know, the veteran that he is, I don't think he has that option, you know. The only option would be to DFA him, and, you know, that's what many people have been calling for. But with the money he's owed, they're not going to do it, you know. So it's like, you just feel bad because he's stuck in this, like, hopeless situation, you know. You see him interview, and, you know, that's the one point of praise that a lot of people have given him these past couple of games, is that he stands in front of that camera and he faces that criticism, and, you know, he faces it all, instead of like previous athletes that we've seen in this city. When the city gets tough on them, they go into hiding, they don't want to talk to the media, this and that. He's been very upfront, you know, with the media, being willing to talk with them and all that. And, you know, just really, you know, you could tell he's also very frustrated himself, you know. And I just want to say, you can probably hear it in the background as I'm talking. You know, they're doing work on the apartments. I've mentioned this throughout previous episodes. It was pretty quiet for a while, you know, and of course when I decide to record, that's when they want to do all this work. So I apologize for that. A part of me wants to stop, but I don't know when they're going to stop working on the building. I don't know if I'm even going to have the time later. So I just apologize for the noise and just want to try and push through. And well, it will probably shorten the length of this episode, sadly. I could have gone on more, but we're just going to have to speed run through a lot of different stuff, because I don't want the noise to be too much of an issue to you listeners. But yeah, very frustrated with the way these Phillies played in certain games. Very frustrated, obviously, with Taijuan Walker's starts. It looks like it stopped. Hopefully, we're all well. Sorry for that noise. Moving forward with the Eagles versus the Saints, a game I was fully worried about, you know. As of last week in my season predictions, I said they wouldn't be that much of an issue, but with, you know, that's the thing, teams start to reveal themselves with these, you know, games as the season goes on. So it turned into a very worrisome game, because you're like, this is the Saints offense, you know, you're going to be pretty scary, you know. And what a confusing game this was, because it's, you know, the end of the third quarter and it's still 3-0, 3 points coming from the first quarter. You held this Saints offense pretty well, and yet on the offensive side for the Eagles, they were also doing well. So you're like, how is it only 3-0? Why do the Eagles not have any points when, you know, other than we'll get into that, but, you know, other than a terrible pick and fumble, Jalen Hurts was being pretty efficient. So what was going on? Well, you look into it, Nick Sirianni was just being too aggressive. He went 1 for 3 on 4th down conversions. Instead of taking the easy points, you know, you could be up 6-3 if you had taken those field goals, you know, maybe even a bit more, you know, but they don't take the points. He wants to be aggressive in the early game, and I think the Saints were also doing that too, you know. So it's only 3-0, and then not only that, he's 1 for 3 on 4th down conversions. He doesn't decide to take the easy points. And then later on, he expects Ezekiel Elliott, or Ezekiel, what the heck? See, I'm thrown off by all the noise that was previously happening. I need to get back into it. Jake Elliott. He expects Jake Elliott to nail a 60-yard field goal without any sort of warm-up. His only warm-up was kicking a PAT from the touchdown previously. He just expects him to nail a 60-yard field goal with no sort of warm-up of previous field goal attempts. And, Elliott, he's a great kicker, one of the best in the league, doesn't hit it because, again, he didn't have any warm-up. You didn't let him kick anything before. He didn't get the warm-up of PATs before, only one PAT, like I said. And, you didn't let him kick any other field goals in this game. And then you're just like, yeah, go out there and nail a 60-yarder, Your longest ever is 61. You could do it. What is that coaching? Who does that? I was baffled by the way Nick Sirianni was coaching this game and choosing to go at it in certain scenarios. I was just completely baffled. I mean, I was blown away by this terrible coaching job that he had. Then the team literally bailed him out. And it's crazy that the team bailed him out because we know what happened to a majority of the team. So getting into it, Jalen, like I said, he had a serviceable day up until around the 4th quarter. He had a bad interception and fumble, but was being pretty efficient. But the 4th quarter, though, is where he really turned it up and, really elevated that serviceable day that he was having before then. And the craziest part to me is that he played so well without his top 2 weapons. He finishes the day with 311 yards. Doesn't have any passing touchdowns, had the interception and the fumble. So obviously the turnover issue is something that seriously needs to get addressed, that he seriously needs to fix. But still, 4th quarter, turned it up when he needed to, really helped this team out. Was pretty good from Jalen. Saquon Barkley, where do I even begin, man? My glorious running back one. Quite literally the team and offense right now. It is his team. It is his offense. They interviewed him and he was like, oh no, this team is, it's all about all the different pieces on it. But no, this is his team. Like I said, where do I even begin? He had an amazing 65-yard touchdown to get us the lead. Smithy had just went down the previous play. They were talking about Goddard needs to step up. Dotson needs to step up. Who's going to step up? It's Saquon Barkley, of course, going 65 yards for a touchdown to get us that lead. He then gets us a goal line touchdown and a 2-point conversion to get us the lead again and make it so that if the Saints kicked the field goal, it would only tie the game. 147 yards on the day with 2 touchdowns. A phenomenal player through our first 3 games. He's just been so amazing. So many people are like, oh, the Eagles would be 0-3 without Saquon Barkley. No, duh. That's why we paid him all that money to come to play for us, because we knew he would instantly upgrade this offense to another level. He's been outstanding. He's been a true safety net for us and doing really well. And speaking of safety nets, Dallas Goedert, where do I even begin? So many times I've talked about Goedert and saying that he needs to be our safety net. They need to be using him more. They need to be using him as such, when AJ and Smithy are getting smothered and the run isn't working. Dallas Goedert is the guy you got to go to. Well, it took AJ and Smithy going down, but he finally got his time in the sun. When they needed him most, Goedert burst out for 170 yards with a 61-yard catch and run. Don't know what's gonna happen to Smithy. That play was absolutely terrible. I'm blaming that injury. Obviously, it's on the Saints player who decided to hit Smithy that way, and then the other player who decided to dive at him when he was already unconscious on the floor. But I'm blaming that one especially on the refs, because the guy catches the ball. He's getting pushed back by 2, I think almost like 3 defenders or something. He's getting pushed back. No forward progression is being made. Blow the dang whistle. What are you doing? They don't blow the whistle, so Smithy gets taken out. And then, of course, no flags are thrown. But hey, no, we gotta suspend Derwin James for 1 game. We gotta fine all these guys for their celebrations. When no, we can't throw a flag or throw any fines at the Saints players for what they did to Smithy. Absolutely baffling, the decision making that has gone into all this stuff when it comes to what happened to Smithy. But again, we don't know what's going to happen with him. Hoping he's all well. I don't think AJ is going to play at all, especially considering the bye week is next week. They're probably going to want to give him as much rest. I know I said a lot about him in the Falcons game, but when you're down 2 weapons, you don't want to lose another. Well, Brian Covey's also out, so that means one less receiver again. That leaves us with Jahan Dotson, Johnny Wilson. I don't even know who the third receiver would be now that Covey's out. Dallas Goedert is going to be very key in this next game. You got to use Goedert more. I don't see how you don't use him more after the game he just had. O-line, got to show a tremendous amount of love for the O-line. Both Lane Johnson and Mekhi Becton went down. Becton went down with something with his hand, I think. Lane went out with a concussion, I believe. Steen and Fred Johnson step in, and they step in perfectly. Johnson himself said, when they interviewed him after that, it had been years since he had played meaningful snaps. Probably 2021, 2020, somewhere around there, he said. And yet, he stepped in when the chance came. He steps up, hoping they can keep it up, especially if Becton and Lane have to miss some time. But I was super proud of these two for just stepping in seamlessly and really helping out that offensive line when they were already down two major pieces this season. Defense, what an improvement from the last game. They were still laying up some big catches, but they came up big when we needed them. Jordan Davis got a big sack. Jalen Carter was wrecking this game. 2 TFLs, 4 tackles in total, 13 tackles for Zach Bond as he continues this great season he's having. And then Reed Blankenship sealing the game off with an interception. Tremendous upgrade from the defense from the last week. But Bryce Huff is still a complete no-show, He's even gotten to the point where his snaps are getting decreased, Man, you wish the Phillies would take some notes from is it Vic Fangio? Yeah, you would wish they would take some notes, paying all this money to the guy, and he doesn't care. He's like, if you're not playing well, you're not gonna get playing time. I mean, he's still playing them to try and hopefully get something out of him in those snaps, so that when he gets those snaps, he can showcase something. But man, the guy's been just an absolute zero across the board, and it's very frustrating to watch. But overall, I think the play calling needs to improve significantly. Sirianni just needs to chill with that early game aggressiveness, especially seeing how this game played out. It's like all those points they skipped out on, they could have tacked on, helped us put this game out of reach at an early point, or at least make it look so that, the last quarter wasn't so stressful, just desperately need a lot better play calling from Sirianni. Very frustrated with the way he called this game. And we move on to next week against the Bucks. This one's truly going to be a tough one. Like I said, I don't think AJ is going to play. I don't think Smithy's going to play. Braden Covey's out. You're limited so much at offenses, and it's the last game before you go into the bye. I think this game is really going to be the one that shapes how our trade deadline is going to go. I know it's pretty crazy to talk about the trade deadline when we're only at week 3, but if Smithy and AJ aren't healthy, I think this is going to be a tough one. And, like I said, this game might shape our trade deadline, because if the defensive line, as much as we just talked up Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, if Bryce Huff isn't doing well, if other guys aren't getting as much pressures and sacks, they might have to trade for a edge piece, as crazy as it seems. And they might have, I don't think anyone's going to be willing to take Bryce Huff off their hands, but, it's just this thing of like, I don't know what they're going to do. But looking at this game, like I said, if Smithy and AJ aren't healthy, it's going to be a tough one. It might have to be a game you win on the ground, but at the same time, it's going to kind of be tough to win it on the ground, because you might just become one-dimensional. The Bucks are going to be like, hey, well, we can just stuff the box and stop the run, because we know they aren't going to be able to pass, because who are they going to pass it to? Unless Jahan Dotson really steps it up, unless Johnny Wilson, the rookie, steps it up, who are you going to pass it to, And I know I was just talking up Goedert, but it's like, yeah, they can start going to Goedert, but if you don't have AJ or Smithy, they're going to be like, well, they only have Goedert. It's going to be like 2020 all over again. Hey, the only thing they have is Goedert. Let's put all the focus on Goedert. Who else is he going to pass it to, Put all the focus on Goedert and Saquon, and what are we going to really do, if we aren't able to get that passing game going, if they're able to focus on the run game, that's the advantage the Bucks have in this game. They're going to be able to focus on that run game and only really have to worry about Goedert in the passing game, unless, like I said, Dotson or Wilson take a step forward. Just going to be a tough one. I don't really see a way for the Birds to pull out here, to pull out a win here, but it's going to be a tough one. I think it's just a loss due to unfortunate circumstances going to that bye week with the loss, but hopefully they come out of that bye week healthy with a lot of their major pieces back. But overall, real fun week of Philly. really excited. The next time we'll talk, the Phillies will be in the playoffs. The playoffs will have likely started. Who knows if they're going to be a wild card team, if they're going to get that first round bye. We'll see. And we'll have to see what this Eagles team is able to do against that Bucks team. But with that said, thank you all for doing this episode. Very excited for this next couple of weeks, and especially as Red October comes towards us.